So this comic book that I read is called The Golden Age, and it is written by James Robinson and illustrated by Paul Martin Smith. And I think the first thing I noticed when I started reading it was the juxtaposition between these two pages. On the blue, it says the world was at peace, but then on this side, it shows a picture of like a whole building falling apart. And it's like, so this book takes place towards the end of World War II, and it focuses mainly on America's like contribution to that. And like the words are all saying that like people are giving their lives for the country, and there's a lot of like destruction and stuff. But it's also talking a lot about how this time period was considered like the golden age in America. And I also like that like the illustrator put this all in black and white, because it just kind of sets the tone for like the war, because obviously that was a big struggle for all the countries involved. But then you turn the page and you see the difference between the black and white and like all the colors on this one, and in this page you can see all like the superheroes, and it's a really cool illustration. And it's just talking about all the people coming home from the war, like reuniting with their families and all that stuff. But it still definitely focuses on like the struggles of the war as well. And it even mentions like some people couldn't make it home from the war, and families were all facing like the loss of their family members. But it also starts to focus on the heroes, and that is where it starts to bring in more color throughout this page. If you can see at the top, it's all black and white, and then it slowly gets more and more color throughout it, which I think is very interesting. And at this point in the story, it's talking about these people who were off fighting in war going back to work, which is also a very big part of this time period because people were all out of their jobs for a very long time. But this is where the story really starts, and it's talking about this guy named Tex Thompson. And you like the first picture you see of Tex Thompson is him standing on this car waving with like confetti falling and everything. It immediately shows how he's being idolized in the society, and people are kind of putting him on this pedestal and making him seem like he was like the best hero and like the only person that like contributed to the success that like America's in right now. And it just shows a bunch of like news reporters just like freaking out about him until the last box on this page, and has a picture of Tex and then like a man in the corner, and he's saying, "What about me?" And at first when I read this I was a little confused, but throughout the story we start to see that Tex is almost given more credit than I think he deserves. Like, people are very much blinded by him, and they're looking past all the other people that like helped in the war effort. And even on the next page, like the colors are back to like very dark. It's very pretty pictures, but it's like it shows very well like the different reactions people had about the war. Especially like the characters on this page are going back to America, and they have a lot of like PTSD, and they're all like have their own struggles. And it just goes back to talking about like Tex and Johnny Quick, like all of like the superheroes in this era, and how they're all kind of like put on these pedestals for so long. And the story goes on to talking about this writer who wants to write a story about these superheroes, but his first reaction is to write all about Tex because he's like the main guy, like people call him Mr. America, but he knows deep down that it wasn't just him, and that there was a bunch of people that took part in it, not just Tex. And yeah, I think that really touches on the fact that most people like to give all the awards to this one person, so it's easier to like celebrate them. And so I think that's why a lot of people get overlooked in situations like this. And the next scene is about Johnny Quick and how. So I think that this relates back to how at the end of World War II we dropped the atomic bomb in Japan, because you can see Quick mentioning how he feels like he's caused so much destruction with his superpowers, and he feels like he's helped by like contributing to saving the country, but at the same time, like, he's had to hurt people during that, and he feels that he has so much undeserved power. Like, he mentions how, like, he has the power to tear down an entire city, but he feels that no person should have that amount of power, which really relates back to how, like, when America and, like, the Allied, like, countries had the power to bomb Japan, and we did, and we killed a lot of innocent people. And I think it just really shows, like, the regret that follows, like, a situation like that, which is really interesting. And also on this page, like, the green ring is, like, what gives him his powers, and there's just a lot of green throughout all these pictures. And then on the next page, like, I don't think there's any green on it, because he's just kind of, like, he's done. He took off the ring, and which also symbolizes the end of the war, because, like, after all, like, the destruction, like, there's nothing else to do but just, like, settle down and try to move on. And it just goes back to talking about, like, all the struggles that he's now going through, because I think he has not only a lot of regret, but he feels like maybe everything was, like, pointless. Like, it shows him start to go into, like, alcoholism. His wife is starting to, like, love someone else. And you can see just, like, his wife smiling, but him just, like, standing there looking like he's contemplating his actions. And the next scene is really back to Tex Thompson talking about how he wants, like, a new superhero, and he wants to start this new era and save people. Like, I think that this is really where we start to see, like, the other side of Tex Thompson, because it shows, like, crime is happening in all these towns, and Tex is saying, like, fellow Americans, listen to me. And he's even standing in front of, like, this big statue, like, and this announcement is being broadcasted to all of America. But then we see that he has caused all these people who think that they have superpowers to go try to become this new superhero that Tex wants. And so we see this man, like, smiling, happy because he'll become a superhero. But then right here on the next page, he is being tested and probed and being treated almost like an animal. And it even says, he scarcely notices the pain that the tests sometimes cause, or the accents of the scientists, which definitely relates back to the Red Scare during this time period, because in the Red Scare, everyone was convinced everyone else was a communist, and it was like a mass paranoia. And this man is so blinded by, like, his future of possibly becoming, like this great superhero, that he's not even paying attention to who he can and can't trust, which again relates back to how everyone is so blinded by Tex Thompson's, like, successes that they're too blind to see that he has a dark side. Because right next to that box, it is the scientists calling Tex. And the pictures and the dialogue and everything very much show that these scientists are Russians, and it almost seems like they're trying to plot something against America, which is funny because everyone in the story idolizes Tex so much, but in reality he's working against them. And the heroes that actually care about people's well-beings, like the one who gave up his green ring because he didn't want to hurt more people, these people are facing alcoholism and trying to like build their lives up, and they aren't getting the credit they deserve. They're going through all these struggles. And yeah, Tex is just getting praised for this. And it even shows... Yeah. And then it even shows in the next scene just like Tex being a very poor person, treating people poorly, and more just like color juxtapositions. And I feel like that's basically the gist of the story. I think it's really interesting how they connected superheroes to, like, which are mostly shown as like kids characters, to such a serious topic such as like the war and the Red Scare and stuff. It was very good. I liked it.